Hello everybody, welcome to the Wild Ginger Running YouTube channel, live broadcast and podcast. Today we are talking about the physical and mental training jump you need to take to go from happily completing 50 miles, 50 plus miles, one day-ish ultras to something like a 6-day multi-dayer, like the Dragon's Back race, for example, with the terrifyingly tremendous coach and physio, Tim Pigott from HP3 Coaching. How are you today, Tim?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Yes, your introductions were always colourful. Yeah, all good, thank you. Thanks for having me back again.
I stalked you a bit on Instagram as per usual before the broadcast, and I see you've been doing some recceing for your Ultra Trail Snowdonia 100-mile race route, wearing a Wild Ginger Running buff, no less. Thank you very much for that.
Did. I got your buff nice and high, yeah.
Yeah. Which is
it's
better than I'm doing, because I'm currently forgotten to wear my Wild Ginger Running t-shirt for this broadcast, so I'm just wearing a really brightly coloured jumper. It's like if you're listening...
So all the people that are listening to this just on the podcast and they don't do the YouTube video, they wouldn't have known. You shouldn't have said that.
No,
you could have got away with it.
Said that. I would have got away with it. But I do really love this jumper. It's like if you can't see it, then you need to click onto the video. The video link is in the show notes. But it's like I'm calling it pastel 80s retro ski jumper. And someone said, well, why not have a jumper like an Easter jumper? It's not just a Christmas jumper thing, is it? I can have an Easter jumper, so it's very bright.
I can see that as being an Easter jumper. Yes,
it's an Easter jumper.
So if you're listening to this on the podcast, you're going to have to now log on to YouTube and look at the video.
Yes, you are. In the show notes is an originally on YouTube link, and you can click it. So you did some recceing for your Ultra Trail Snowdonia 100-miler, wearing the Wild Ginger Running buff. How's that going?
A reminder that the tagline that is sort of beautiful beyond belief and savage beyond reason, emphasis on the savage. Yes, it is going to be epic. And I knew that before I got into it. I'd done the 100k and that was just insanely hard. And the 100-miler is all the insanely hard bits of the 100k and a whole bunch of extra stuff layered on top as well.
Yeah, it's harder than the
I should hopefully be back down there again this week, getting some more time on the course, which is always invaluable. If you ever get eyes on the course before a race, it's always time well spent. And if you can't get there in person, then it's watching as many YouTube videos, and I'm still doing that as well. There's plenty of people that have filmed themselves either doing recce's or in the race. So you can always find people that have filmed elements of whatever race you're looking at.
Yes, yeah.
Just to really help you visualize what the kind of challenges are that are coming up, but really again, visualizing some of those key points. We're talking about UTS, but I somewhat keep forgetting I've got the South Downs Way 50 coming up in a few weeks' time, and that's not a trail I know at all, and I won't be able to get there to recce it at all, so I will be running that one inverted commas blind. However, I am watching loads of YouTube videos. And in fact, I was watching one last night that somebody filmed just a couple of weeks ago, because they were doing a recce as well and filmed their recce. And it's great. So it's like, right, so I'm looking for that little gate there. And so when I hit, the church here, I'm turning right and I'm following it down that path. So when I get there on the race, it's like, I know where I'm going. There's no stopping. There's no thinking. There's no checking the map or checking your watch, or it's just like, I know where I'm going.
Yeah, you'll sort of recognise it already, won't you? A bit like Google Street Map for if you're trying to find an Airbnb or something.
And that's another really, really useful tool. We're going off topic here now, talking about recce's. But yeah, even sort of using Google Street View and just, there's so much out there where you can literally kind of walk through an entire race. I've done 100k plus races where I've just recce'd it using Google Street View.
Wow.
And you literally just going frame by frame and just visualizing every little bit. Wow. And you focus in on the key navigational points of where is that turning I'm looking for, and picking out those landmarks. So again, it just means that you kind of in the race you focus on I've spotted this bit, so in another few hundred meters time I'm looking for that landmark, and then it's just breaking it down. You only think about the next landmark coming up rather than the fact you've got another 50, 70, 90 kilometers to run or whatever it might be.
Yeah, And
Yeah.
even though we've gone off topic, we have got a question coming already. Active Ideas says, do you have a goal time, Tim, or are you going to race by feel on the day? We've also got Lloyd is watching live from the treadmill, and Antonio Latona is saying, good morning from South Carolina. Well, hello there across the pond.
Good morning indeed. Good morning. Do I have a goal time in mind?
Yes.
Yes. However, I know full well that probably will go straight out the window as soon as the gun goes. It's one of those where we don't know what the weather conditions are going to be like for obvious reasons. The last 2 years at Snowdonia, it's been a real kind of uptick in temperatures. It hasn't been crazy hot, but because it's been the kind of hottest day of the year so far, it's always felt a lot hotter. So people have struggled in the heat. And when I raced it 2 years ago, the heat was a real challenge. So who knows what the temperatures are going to be like. We're due a wet and stormy year, so it might be a cold, wet and windy year. It might be really hot. That will all obviously play into it. What the weather is like in the weeks leading up to it, and therefore the impact on ground conditions, will play into what time is. So it's always difficult going into any form of trail or ultra race with a very specific time goal, because there are so many other variables which will impact any time goals that you have. So yes, I will have in an ideal world, I will run X time. But that will be on a sliding scale depending on what the conditions are like, what the day's like, and how the race unfolds in terms of what other people are doing as well. So we'll see. We'll see.
We just have to watch his dot on the tracker. Active Ideas.
Yes, and I'm one of those people who it takes me 20 plus miles to warm up, so I'm always kind of behind the pace for the first 20 odd miles, and then suddenly I seem to come good.
Yeah,
and then I start picking people off and coming back. So
a negative split for you on the UTS.
Absolutely.
100 miler.
Yeah, absolutely. Or fairly even split, as close to even splits as you can.
Yeah. So you're doing these really long ultras, which are like they're not really a day, are they? They're like longer than a day ultras. But today we're going to be talking about the preparation.
Be less than a day. They might be less than a day. Let's see how we go. Right?
We'll see how we go. Less than 24 hours is the time there. We've got something out of him. But today we're going to be talking about making that jump from people doing not even 100 milers, to be fair, like people at that sort of 50k, 50 miler day race. They've got that under the belt. They've done like several 50 milers. They might have done a 100 miler, but then they might think, ooh, a multi-dayer. Could I actually do one of those? Could I do Cape Wrath Ultra? Could I do like the Jurassic Coast, that triple dayer that they've got? Could I do Druids Challenge? Could I do even a 6-dayer like the Dragon's Back, which I'm doing my sort of recce's really, my slowest known time, my SKT on the Dragon's Back, which is 6 separate weekends in 2025. So is the because I was thinking, is the preparation and training actually that much difference to running a 50 miler? Because the actual amount of running that you should be doing in your training, once you're doing 50 milers, you can't really fit much more running in, can you? What is it more the preparation that's different?
No, if you take that sort of bird's eye view of the training plan, it probably doesn't look vastly different. But it comes back to some of the points we talked about in previous episodes of these, whereas really think about the specificity of that particular event. And you reeled off a long list of various stage races. Other ones that spring to mind are things like the Ring of Fire,
around Anglesey.
There's even slightly more sort of corporate-y, but the Threshold Trail series, where they offer the options of doing the 100Ks split over 2 days, for example.
And
you've got your kind of camp in the middle. Yeah, exactly. You kind of Race the Stones as a classic there. So you've got different styles of multi-days. And in some ways, we could even lump into this some of the very long ultras where you are doing it over multiple days and you are planning stops, camps, sleeps. They may be stops at particular aid stations, or they may be, stops that you're planning even on the trail itself. And, they can be, like I say, I just had one of my guys come back from doing the 6633 Ultra in the Arctic. So, 300 and, now, 60 miles, 360 miles, something like that.
Yeah.
And you're pulling all your own gear with you. So again, that's come on to that as well. But are you being supported in your camps, or are you carrying all your own gear? And again, it's thinking about, is it like the Beyond the Ultimate series where you've got to carry all your own food and supplies? Is it like your Marathon des Sables, where again, you're carrying all your own supplies other than water?
And the tent.
Or is it
I don't think they carry the tent.
And the tent, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or is it that you're just carrying your day kit and actually you've got a kit bag that's being transported from place to place? So if we think about the specifics of that, then you've got to think about, are you just doing a shortish run where you're just carrying your day kit? So in other words, your pack is going to be relatively light. Or are you doing more of a kind of expedition type event where actually your pack is going to be a lot heavier? And therefore, is it going to be more shorter runs, lots of rest in camp? Or is it going to be longer time on feet, maybe more hiking, and therefore maybe less time in camp?
So make sure like obviously you would know, but there's a big difference between, like, say, the Dragon's Back race where you get your big bag transported through, and you're just wearing as little as possible and you're just sort of like do along the mountain.
Yes.
Or Marathon des Sables where you've got to carry all your food.
Exactly.
Or the 6633 one that you were just talking about where your man
you're pulling a sledge,
pull a whole sledge with all the stuff in. So training is specific and according to what type of multi-day you've signed up for. So we're actually talking about a series of things rather than just a simple thing that I thought
it
at
is
the start.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the beauty of we're talking about trail and ultra running here, is it is such a broad church. And you're talking about multi-dayers. Well, again, there's such a broad church of multi-dayer type events.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Let's talk about the simplest one to start with. So the first multi-dayer that I did was the Druids Challenge. And that was a really nice one along the Ridgeway. I'm sure you've done the Ridgeway itself, haven't you? Like
very well.
It goes past your parents' house. And it's a really beautiful trail, very easily runnable, but quite slippy in the wet because it's chalky area. And you get your bag transported and you just carry a little day pack. Let's talk about something like that, because that's probably the first kind of multi-day someone would do. It's 29 miles. I think it's a marathon a day-ish for 3 days. And you get your food provided. You sleep in a big hall. Take earplugs. Oh my God. There are so many snoring men.
Yes. Yeah, so for something like that, like I say, your bird's eye view of your training plan isn't going to look vastly different to maybe what you've already done previously if you've trained up for, like I say, something like a 50 miler. So if you've trained up for a 50 miler, doing a marathon it almost becomes a bit of your bread and butter long weekend run, doesn't it? So doing 2 marathons back to back is, that's essentially a big weekend of training. So the third day of doing that is, it's a challenge. So what your training is going to look like is you're going to build in a few of those back to back weekends where you're doing a long run on the Saturday, a long run on the Sunday. And it might build up to doing 3 where you do maybe a longish run after work on the Friday. You get up Saturday, do another long run, get up Sunday, do another medium long run, something like that. So you're getting used to the getting up back to backs. Obviously, with back to back long runs, we are then dealing with fatigue on those second or potentially third long run of a block. So there does then become the potential risk for injury and your running form starting to go. So we don't necessarily need to do lots of back-to-back long runs, but it might be that every maybe once a month or every few weeks, you put an effort in terms of blocking out time in the diary to say, right, I'm doing 2 long runs this weekend, versus maybe your standard where it might just be 1 long run at the weekend.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of how you'd want to just structure it. And obviously those back-to-back weekends, they carry extra fatigue. So then you need to be thinking about your days before and after. So it might be you're giving yourself, a recovery day and a very easy day Monday, Tuesday after that weekend, and giving yourself an easy day going into it. So you're just sort of spreading the load out a little bit. So rather than trying to cram too much in and then still going down to the club training session on a Monday night or a Tuesday night and trying to do your intervals or whatever it might be, you might just need to give yourself a little bit of extra rest after those longer back-to-back days if you are carrying extra fatigue. And yeah, again, it comes back to the specificity of, if it is carrying extra load, then it's making sure you're getting used to carrying that extra load. And it might be that some of those back-to-back days are just going for a good long hike. With a lot of my guys on the team, that hike might be, putting their young child in a backpack and going for a hike. Whether it's just on the flat or up a hill or whatever, but just doing a big long hike like that is still good training. So yeah, it's not necessarily always going to be about running. It's about that time on feet, getting used to that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And how do you know how your body's going to cope with that day after day movement? Because I know you could maybe for a 3-day, you can maybe do the Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday. But say if you were then going to jump up to something like the Dragon's Back race, which is 6 days, or Cape Wrath Ultra, which is like 8 days. How do you know what's going to happen? Or do you just not? Like, that's all part of the fun and games of the experience of finding out more about what your body can do?
Well, that's part of what the whole entering these races is somewhat of that journey of self-discovery and, how will I cope? Obviously, if you're going into these trying to push your limits, trying to be at all competitive, then you need to explore that and you need to learn those lessons. And you need to learn those lessons in training. So it might be a case of, yes, having some annual leave and extending that out. So you go for a hiking week trip and getting used to being on your feet for multiple days.
Oh yeah, like Jasmine Parrish, she swears by a 12-day, like a 14-day holiday in like the Pyrenees or somewhere at a bit of altitude with a big hiking backpack and camping.
That's it.
For
so
14
before
days.
her big races, they'll just go for a family holiday. Yeah. And it'll just be hiking all day for a week or two, like you say, and that's fantastic training. Yeah, absolutely. So that'd be a case of, if you can build that into your training block, maybe a couple of months out from your main event, is saying, right, I'm just going for a hiking trip, walking holiday. Putting something together like that would be fantastic ways to learn how does your body respond. And also it's then practicing and learning your camp craft and your recovery strategies and techniques, which we can come on to.
Yeah, because I think the main jump that I've seen in going from, say, a 50 miler up to any kind of multi-dayer is that you can kind of get away with stuff on a 50 miler. You can get away with not fueling very well. You can get away with having a blister and just putting up with it for the last 10 miles. You can get away with like eating a bit of rubbish and feeling, having a stomachache and kind of clawing it back.
Yes.
But the next day to think about getting up and doing that all over again is a whole different ball game. You've really got to be on top of those 50 milers, haven't you, before you start then doing multi-dayers. You need to be doing those 50 milers and going, maybe I could, do a walk today, the next day. So you can't, there's no room for sort of errors, is there? Not errors, but like there's no room for not taking care of yourself properly.
You need to be bothered about the bothers.
Yeah. Bothered about the bothers.
And I think that's a really good motto to have.
It's a good motto. I'm always like passing off whatever bothers I can pass off. I'm like, I won't deal with that. It'll just take me time.
In that moment, if there's something that's bothering you, and it's just niggling away in the background, and like you say, on a normal, let's say a single race, a single day race, you might just go, I'll just battle on through. There's a bit of a sore spot on my heel. Yes, there's going to be a blister tomorrow, but I'll push on through. It's fine. No. You need to stop and you need to be bothered about the bothers. and address it early, because otherwise, yes, it will come back and bite you later on. Like you say, the next day and the day after that and the day after that. So yeah, it's dealing with that in the moment. And you're right, it's about thinking not necessarily about the moment that you're in, but the impact of any decisions you're making now on the day after and the day after that and the day after that. So as you said there, you can push through a low fuel moment in a single day race, but the knock-on effect on the subsequent days and the days after that are going to be significant. So if you are doing a multi-day, you really can't let that slip. Day one, day two, you've got to stay on top of your nutrition, because it's not necessarily about fueling in the moment. It's about the recovery and the impact on the subsequent days.
Yeah.
And that sort of feeds into maybe one of the points to think about in terms of what is your nutrition strategy in the race. And your nutrition strategy for a multi-day may well be slightly different to a single stage race.
Yeah.
Because if I was doing a single stage race, then I'm doing it on just gels and drink. I'm just doing it on simple carbs. But the fact is that that does mess up your guts if you just try and do that for too long. You can't do days and days and days just on gels. There's got to be some real food going in there to look after your gut microbiome.
Yeah. So
there does need to be some more real food mixed into that. There does need to be some, pre and probiotics to support your gut and keep that healthy, to minimize that gut stress. Because otherwise, when your gut's shut down, then it's game over. You can keep trying to squeeze gels in there, but it's not going to get absorbed, and it's game over in terms of the race. So yes, you may well need to adjust your in-race nutrition strategy to match for that as well. And everybody's going to have their own variations on what that looks like. So again, it comes down to practice and testing in training to see.
What does yours look like? Like, for example, the UTMB coming up for you, that's going to take you, well, I don't know, more than 24 hours probably, because that's a highly elite time. But you are very elite, as we know. So
let's not put any time targets on that one.
So
again, for me, for UTMB, it will be again largely simple carbs, because I'll be redlining it as much as you redline something like that, the whole way. There will be some real food mixed in there as well at the aid stations where I'll have my support crew. But no, I think it's maybe going back to more the where you are stopping in a camp versus something that's going even just over the 24-hour mark, where it is going to be more, like I say, real food. It gives you your mouth, your stomach, your brain something else to play with, rather than just simple sugars, which might keep your energy levels up, but you still end up feeling hungry. I think it's important to then include that real food around your normal meal times as well. So we're keeping those normal circadian rhythms going in terms of your feeding. And then in between those meal times, that might be when you're then reaching for your simple sugars, so your gels, your energy drinks. But then you're trying to plan your strategy so that when you would normally have lunch, you eat some more solid food.
Yeah.
Same with your dinners, your breakfast, and so on. So if it is a kind of stage race, it's usually it's going to be that you have your breakfast in camp, you head off, you then get your midday more solid food at one of the aid stations, and then hopefully in camp for tea time, dinner time, supper time, depending on which part of the world you're in, and have your evening meal, and again more solid, proper, real food. But then along with that, we've got to think about your recovery. So yes, your camp craft is also about your nutrition recovery strategy. So as soon as you cross that finish line, you're going straight to your drop bag, your kit bag, whatever it is, and you're getting your recovery nutrition on board.
So
you're getting your
like
hydration
on
board.
Something.
Yeah. So whether it's shake, whether it's some protein powder, something like that. you're getting your hydration on board. So that's the first thing you do before you even start trying to get cleaned up or anything. You start that recovery, you start that replenishment.
Then you can sort of be sipping it like while you're getting changed or sorting your feet out,
exactly.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get your recovery nutrition on board first of all. You start the rehydration, because again, no matter how much you're drinking during the day, you will be finishing that run in a slightly dehydrated state.
Yeah.
So it's getting straight back on board with your rehydration, straight back on board with your refueling. Then you're getting yourself washed, changed, sorted out, and then you move on to your real food. So then you get your recovery snacks, and then maybe into the tent, the kind of canteen tent or whatever it might be, and having your proper evening meal. So yeah, it's thinking about that and planning that and getting a really strict routine that you're following.
Yeah, I'm sure Christian said something about that when he was talking about his Dragon's Back, and he did a couple of things differently. Like there was a big queue at a certain time, so he used that time to sort out stuff, or he made sure he was right at the front of the queue at breakfast, I think he said, on the Dragon's Back race, so that he could be the first there. And oh yeah, do you know what he did? He slept in his kit. Like he got his whatever kit he was going to wear that next day, if it's the same kit or whatever, he just got all the kit on and slept in that, so that he literally just got up, put his backpack on, he was ready to go to the get the porridge. Yeah.
Good drills.
Yeah,
good
so
drills.
That was good drills for him. And then I suppose so that's sort of the nutrition sort of covered as much as you can because it's so personal to everybody. But then the blisters thing, that's the bit that always gets me, because like I actually got a blister on the first day of the Cape Bath Ultra, and I was really surprised by it because I had trained in those socks and those exact shoes, and I just was like, why on earth have I suddenly got a blister? It's only 16 miles this day. Like it was not even like I was used to doing. I did 20 miles 5 days in a row back to back before running, and I did it, and I thought, oh, I'm really fit, this is brilliant. And that first day I got a blister, and I think it was really, really warm because I've been doing all my training in like March, the peak of my training, and then it was May when it was Cape Bath Ultra, and even though it was Scotland, it was actually really hot, and I think that everything expanded, and I was wearing waterproof socks because I thought, oh yeah, it's going to be really boggy, I need to keep my feet as dry as possible, I'll wear waterproof socks. It had sort of been sort of like recommended, and I was like, okay, I'll wear waterproof socks, and that really ended up really not working for me, and I got a blister on my toe, and because I wasn't supposed to get a blister at that point so early on, I didn't do anything about it on that day. And what I should have done, because I was only like 5 miles in and everyone was there like running past really sort of fast, they were just running past, and I felt like there was this stream of people just coming past me, and I could not stop to do this thing to the blister that I knew I should have done. And maybe if I had just stopped for half an hour and sorted that out that first day, maybe I would have gone a bit better.
I mean, probably wouldn't have been half an hour, it probably just would have been 5-10 minutes, just shoes off, sort your socks out, maybe sort out a crease, maybe stick a Compede or something on if needed. But yeah, that's it. The lesson there, anybody listening, is be bothered about the bothers.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter how early in the race it is. If there's something that's just niggling, something just bothering you, stop, act on it. Because yes, you might be able to continue on for another few hours. If it's a multi-day, it might be you can get another few days out of it. But eventually it'll become a point where it will stop you. So yeah, act on it early.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about the waterproof socks and waterproof shoes. I mean, my personal take is that most of the time, if you're using waterproof socks or shoes, yes, it stops water getting in, but also stops water getting out, and some of that water can obviously be sweat. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of them. I do use kind of waterproof socks more when it's very, very cold for short periods, but yeah, I think there's sort of questions to be asked about that. So it's about what are the things you need to do in terms of foot care and preparation. And again, everybody's got their own preferences on this one, whether it is creams, whether it's powders, whether it's taping. So you need to experiment and see what works for you. You talk about I'm sure we did it in Cape Wrath, so a lot of people in the community will know Gary Chapman, and I remember he taped his feet, thoroughly taped his feet, and put that on at the start of day one, and I'm pretty sure he did that technique for Cape Wrath. He certainly has done it for the spine race, and the tape stays on for the entire duration. So we're talking multiple days, and gets to the end, takes his shoes off, and his feet are in really good condition. That won't work for everybody. For other people, they need to be taking socks and shoes off on a regular basis, airing the feet, whether it's talcum powder, whether it's anti-friction creams. There's obviously different approaches, and it's just working out what is the right approach for you.
Yeah, and it might take you a few to work it out, mightn't it?
Absolutely, and that's where in training you need to be asking yourself, right, so in this long run this weekend, I'm going to try this cream on my feet and see how my feet respond. On that weekend, I'm going to try that powder and I'm going to see how that responds. On that run, I'm going to try taping my feet and see how that works.
Yeah.
And you test it and you work out what your feet do like and what they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we build that in.
It was interesting when I first started chatting to you, Tim. You introduced me to the concept of the foot holy trinity, which was that you've got your shoe, but you've also got an insole and the sock as well. So there's three things that you really need to think about. Whereas before, I was just trying to test a shoe to see what shoe wouldn't give me blisters, because I was so traumatized by the Cape Wrath Ultra blisters. So I was searching for the perfect shoe. Then you introduced the fact that you can tweak a shoe with insoles and with the socks. So that was really useful to know. I think that's really useful for anybody who's embarking upon a multi-dayer, because you can even take certain insoles and certain socks with you for certain days. Like if your feet are going to swell, you could take some slimmer socks, that kind of thing. It's not all about the shoe.
Okay, so that nicely segues into that point about swelling and feet swelling. So it may well be that actually, yes, your feet are going to get bigger over the course of that run. So do you need a second pair of shoes in your drop bag? A larger pair of shoes for the the back half of the race, maybe half a size up or even a full size. Or another tip, which nicely segues into what you just mentioned there about the insoles. And that's a tip I got from Dougie Zinnis, which is, he'll start his race in a pair of shoes which are just that half a size too big, but he puts an extra insole in them at the start to kind of fill in that space. So then all he has to do is part the way through the race is just take out that second insole, and then the shoe's the right size for his slightly swollen feet.
Yeah.
So yes, you can play around with obviously different insoles there. It might be that, and I think when it comes to your footwear choices, you want to think about, do you need to change for a more cushioned, softer shoe for the back half of the race? So it might be, again, do you need to look at maybe a more cushioned insole for the back half of the race if you're wanting something a bit softer? So, I'll use some of the, supported by CDAS and, some of the more cushioned insoles, and swapping those into shoes for latter stages. And that can be quite useful. Kind of plays into the idea of, some of the companies are now doing the kind of modular shoes, normal with their modular shoes. You can change the midsole. And it's that sort of idea is fine if you don't want to use modular shoes like that, but you can use different insoles depending on what kind of feedback you want from that midsole, whether it's a more responsive or more cushioned. So yeah, there's different ways you can play around with that. And again, then pairing that with appropriate socks that then work with those particular insoles. So again, I'm biased, but the CDAS socks tend to have the gripper bands, which then help you grip to the insole, stop you sliding around in the shoe as much, so minimizing the risk of friction or sort of just banging your toes into the front of the shoes.
Yeah, they're really good, those bands. Their socks tend to be quite slim, but they do a double sock as well, don't they? I enjoy wearing that, and that can rub itself rather than your foot. And Harrier, and Harrier do a twin skin sock as well, which I've been using. They're slightly thicker as well, and I when I use a wide fit shoe, they work really well for me. Those, but sometimes if you're wearing a double sock, you have to be careful it doesn't ruckle up in a funny place that you can't pull out. That's the only trouble with any double skin sock, I find.
Yeah. I mean, I've got some of the twin skins, obviously, and normally I'm not a fan of twin skins for that very reason, that they tend to kind of crinkle up and things like that. But these are the first ones that I've actually generally got on with, particularly for I like them because they are that bit thicker. So yeah, the kind of colder winter days, they are quite good. Otherwise, yes, I tend to use thinner single layer socks, and then personally, I use talcum powder in my socks for my anti-friction, and that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody though, so that's why you've got to test.
Yeah, you've got to test it out. So you've got to be doing those long days out in the hills and not just putting up. Be bothered about the bothers. And what about sleep deprivation? That not in terms of. I think we're solidly on stage racing here, where we're staying overnight and we're camping in maybe tents with other people or a big hall with other people.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head early on when you talked about your Druids challenge. In earplugs.
Yeah.
Don't forget your earplugs. Take an eye mask, things like that, so that you can really try and block things out, block other people out, so that you can actually get some decent sleep. Because yes, if you forget your earplugs, you're probably not sleeping all week, are you?
Yeah.
And then absolutely the impact on your race performance is going to be significantly. So yeah,
I would go a step further than earplugs as well. I'm just going to get it to show you, because just down here, so you can get these quite cheaply. I know we shouldn't really be using Amazon because of dubious ethics, but I have in the past got a headband on Amazon.
I've got one of them.
And it's got two little speakers either side of the head, and just a little simple on-off button at the front, and volume adjustments, and it links via wireless Bluetooth to your iPhone, and you can put on a podcast, or music. So because the earplugs, I find that they just pop out after a while, and you just lose them in your sleeping bag somewhere. You can put a buff over your head to stop that happening somewhat, and that does muffle the sound a bit more as well. And you can also use it as a handy eye mask. It's 3 uses in one. But I find that listening to a podcast or music definitely cuts out any kind of snoring. So that's even better than earplugs.
That's it.
For me.
I use one of those, and that's it. Kind of listening to your headspace or your meditation or whatever it might be. Yeah, kind of sleep meditation. So yeah, they're very useful.
Yeah. You just have to remember to put it each, like Spotify or the podcast app. They've got a little sleep button that you can press. You can do 15 minutes, 20 minutes, well, not 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, or just when the program ends. So that's just do that, because otherwise I've had it running on and it's played a different podcast. It might be like one with an advert for a really scary podcast on there, like those true crime ones, or like a scary ghost story one, and it's like plop. Do you want to find out about this murder? And it's like, no, I'm trying to go to sleep. I don't want to know anything bad. So just watch out for that.
The other tip about those, sleep bands is, I don't know what yours is like, but mine that I've got, it's got an LED light on the kind of box at the front there, which is really, really bright.
Oh, really?
So I've had to kind of open it up to then stick some electricity tape over the LED light to stop it then shining. And the other thing is, remember to charge it, because mine, when it goes low battery, doesn't matter how quiet you've got it, you just get this voice in your head, screaming, low battery, low battery. Charge me. Yeah.
Charge me. That's the Aftershocks one that does
really loudly. So what kind of wakes you up? So
yeah, and if you've only got these type of bone conducting headphones, these obviously they hook round the back of your head. So if you're trying to lie down on your back, you can't do it. So I have in the past, like for want of nothing else, I've put them on sort of like that, like completely the wrong way around.
Okay.
If they're you can put a buff over them as well. But if you basically balance them anywhere on your head that's vaguely near your ear, you will still be able to hear that.
Come through. That's right.
It looks a bit special, but it works. So that is my very top tip for sleep deprivation on these multi-stage ultras, because I just remember I was in a tent with Kirsty Reid on the Cape Wrath Ultra, and at one point she actually threw something at another tent and said, "Stop snoring!" Like other people in the tent, push them over, roll them over. We need to sleep here. It was very funny.
That's it. So earplugs, block out the world, get your sleep in there. Yeah, that's it.
Get your sleep.
Yeah, I suppose on that sort of topic of sleep is, when you're in the moment, is again a good motto is, why stand when you can sit? Why sit when you can lie? So when it is over, get into your tent and be sitting down, and if you can, be lying down, get your feet up, chill. Don't just be wandering around wasting energy. Is getting in your tent, get on your bed, your pit, get your legs up in the air and just relax. So I'll just ask yourself that question all the time. If I'm standing, should I be sitting? If I'm sitting, should I be lying?
So that's kind of like something really useful to people like me who are like very sort of sociable and outgoing people. Like I wouldn't be going to the Dragon's Back going, oh, hello everyone, because everyone after the first day would probably be just like hibernating in their tents, like doing all these things, putting their feet up, and I'd be the idiot one going around going, hi, how's everyone doing, and not sorting my kit out and being the last in the queue for breakfast and getting off late. That's useful info, I think, to anyone who's a bit more sociable, that it may not be the wonderful sociable holiday break that you imagined.
No, keep the social parts for when you're actually on the trails with people. And maybe in the canteen or in the meal tent.
Yeah, good shout. So you're not going to be wandering around tent to tent chatting to people.
And then so what other things we want to think about? So we talk about feet and sort of foot care, and a bit like the sort of the military saying, an army marches on its feet and on its stomach. So the first thing you sort out is your feet. So when you're back in camp, make sure you're looking after them, cleaning them, making sure you're not letting your feet just kind of fester in wet, muddy socks and shoes. And then other sort of general cleanliness. Obviously, multi-days is, how are you dealing with getting sweaty and salt building up on your skin. So making sure you're cleaning the mud off, cleaning the sweat off as best that you can. So whether that's being able to get showers or even the kind of no water shampoos and body cleaners, whether that's wet wipes, whether that's some of the you can get these kind of shampoos now that you don't need water for, just to kind of get rid of the dirt and really kind of clean your skin off, so that you don't end up with chafing, you don't end up with skin infections, because again, that's what's going to end your race very quickly.
So even if there's no showers and you're like in a camping situation, sometimes there might be a river. Would a river be a good idea?
Potentially.
Both in terms of cleanliness and maybe a bit of reduction of swelling maybe as well. It can feel quite nice, can't it, on
it'll just legs. Refresh the nervous system, if nothing else, the cold on there. So exactly. So it just comes, it's just having good campcraft, good routines that you've practiced, and stick to that routine and make sure that you look after yourself and don't sort of just cross the line, collapse in a heat. Half an hour later, you wander off, you go and start getting changed, and before you know it, it's 2 hours before you've then eaten and drunk and everything. And you've been kicking around in wet, smelly, dirty kit.
So
then get all your stuff ready for the next morning. So like you said about your man who's goes to bed in the kit for the next day, exactly, it's just getting rid of another job to do the next day. So making sure all your stuff is organized, your kit bag is all organized in terms of packaged up into little bags, for each particular day, all your nutrition sorted out day by day. It's all your planning and preparation. Spreadsheets, lots and lots of spreadsheets.
Cool. Was there anything else that was a key skill in enjoying that transition from single day ultras to multi-day ultras? Is there anything we've missed out on? We've got specificity in training, blisters, nutrition, sleep deprivation, admin at camp. We've done all those. Those was everything that was on my list. Have I missed anything else?
I think we covered a decent range of things there. You said about the enjoyment side of things. And I think, it comes back to that little bubble and really kind of enjoying the fact you are in a little bubble for whatever period of time that it is, whether it's a few days, whether it's a full week, and the social elements and the camaraderie that comes along with that. So, making sure you really, you're making the most of that side of the event as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's sounding less of a good idea for me to do something like that now. But I think 20 miles is like my limit. I might invent my own, like I did when I ran around the Isle of Man. Yeah, oh, there's one live question from Active Ideas. They say, are there any nutrition prep ideas, like before the race, like race weight, for example? Oh, right, so getting down to an ideal weight to run the race. Yeah, what do you think about that side of things then?
Yeah,
Leaning up for a race. I'd say carry a bit more with you because then you've got
yeah,
stuff to lunch on
that's a
overnight.
very tricky question, that one, because how do you know what is race weight? What is your optimal race weight? So we try not to really talk about that as much now because there's a lot of negative, obviously, eating disorder connotations that come along with that, but also to be able to then say what is your ideal race weight is a very difficult thing to calculate anyway, even in elite athletes who are working with nutritionists on a daily basis.
Yeah.
On a more general point, I mean, what you just said there about you maybe carrying a little bit of extra weight going into it is possibly not a bad thing, because if it is a multi day, then the chances are you're not going to be replenishing everything that you're burning. So starting well fueled up, should we say, is going to be useful, because you will be then losing it as the duration of the event goes on. But yeah, I wouldn't be necessarily worrying about either kind of trimming down to race weight. It's more about just getting onto that start line as healthy as possible.
Yeah, so lots of like nutritious food and
Yeah,
leafy
I mean,
green
there's the
vegetables.
general advice on, yes, not sort of carb loading, but just sort of simplifying your carbs in the build up, maybe kind of minimizing huge amounts of fiber in your diet so you're not carrying extra weight there, minimizing eating any kind of food that might upset your stomach. So, keeping things a little bit simpler, a little bit blander, less of your spicy curries in the days leading up to it, this type of thing. So, there's those strategies, certainly. And as I mentioned, in terms of looking after your gut throughout the event, is make sure that your gut microbiome's in a really healthy state going into the race, and then ensuring that also your post-event nutrition recovery also looks after the gut microbiome for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so just eat healthily and don't worry about losing lots of weight, unless you're like morbidly obese, of course. In which case,
Yeah,
yes.
if you really wanted to go into things in more detail, then what I'd say is you want to be working with a sports nutritionist, because it does become a little bit more personalized to your specific needs and demands. So it's a tricky one to give very general advice on that point.
Yeah. Well, that is a good answer. They say super useful, that, Tim. Cheers. And one of these fist pump things. And then another live comment from Shaznay999. This is a really good point, actually. Volunteering at a multi-day event at one of the checkpoint provides an invaluable insight as to how you would achieve no faffing. So that's
Definitely.
a really good shout. And I know that if you volunteer at the Dragon's Back race, it's actually a really fun thing to do, because you get a couple of hours off to just like do a little run every day after you've helped with all the camp and stuff. And I think it contributes something towards like either a free place or like half a free place or something. You have to do a certain amount of volunteer hours for them before you get a free race place. But yeah, it sounds like a great way to sort of recce the course in a way, or recce the race in a sense, that you see what people are doing efficiently and what people are not doing efficiently.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Really good point.
Yeah. Yep, so that's a good idea. Brilliant, cool. Well, thanks everybody for coming and listening to the show. I hope that's really helped you, either if you are preparing for a multi-dayer, or you're just doing like 50k, 50 milers and thinking, could I do a multi-dayer? So yeah, I hope that's really helped you out. Obviously, there's loads of training plans made by Tim in my book, The Ultimate Trail Running and The Ultimate Ultra Running Handbooks. And Tim's got a load of training plans at Training Peaks as well. So just go on to trainingpeaks.com/mytrainingplans/wild ginger running. There's loads there. And if there is something there that you need, then just message me on Patreon and Tim can pop something up for you. There's stuff to get on there. So yeah, how can we follow your progress towards UTS 100 miler and then the UTMB, Tim? Let everyone know how we can follow your progress.
Yeah, I mean, the main social I tend to use for this is Instagram. So Tim Pigott HP3 on Instagram. So yeah, give me a follow there. And we're in the middle of starting a documentary. So quite a high level cinematic documentary of me, my backstory with the accident and getting back to running and racing and taking us through to UTMB. So yeah, it's been a busy week of some long filming days so far over this last week. So yeah, a couple of little sneak peeks up on Instagram already. This is going to be, the footage this guy's getting is going to be really quite special. Not your standard YouTube documentary. This is high-end cinematic stuff he's producing.
Wow. Are they going to be following you on the next 3 ultras that you're doing then? The one.
That's the plan.
Fantastic.
We've got more filming tomorrow in the lab, so I'm doing lab testing tomorrow. See where my levels are at the moment. See where my fitness levels are at the moment.
And is that with Scarpa then, that film?
No, this is independent at the moment. So yeah. Well, we're looking for sponsors. So if anybody does want to sponsor the film that's listening, maybe get in touch. But yeah, we've got a few ideas there.
Oh, I'm sure Scarpa would love to sponsor that. Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Oh, wow, that's brilliant. Well, if you want to do like a little sneak preview on Wild Ginger Running, you'd be more than welcome, Tim. And yeah, we can't wait to watch that. When's it going to be out then?
Well, I reckon it'll be probably next year now after YouTube at the end of the year, and then obviously edits and everything else. So the vague plan at the moment is looking at the kind of festival circuit probably next year. Cool. So yeah, let's see how things go. But yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Cool, fantastic. Oh well, that's brilliant. That's great news. And yeah, thank you so much, Tim. It's always fantastic to chat to you. A tremendous
My pleasure.
impact. And goodbye, everybody, and good luck in your races this year.
Cheers, guys.